An hour after midnight, the rain came down in sheets, drawing gauzy curtains over the hard angles of Nova Byzantium's skyline. Every neon sign distorted to watercolor, every alley became a sluice, and yet high above the puddled streets, a lone figure crouched on the lip of a decommissioned mag rail platform. The city called the person Spectre, because you never saw more than the mercury silver mask and the flaring cloak before the vigilante vanished again into shadow. Tonight, the mask's lenses glowed faint cyan as Spectre surveyed District 12, listening to the police bands crackle with terse warnings about gang escalations and corporate security sweeps. Down at street level, the last night buses snarled past Voss Botanic, a cramped shop wedged between a vape parlor and an automated pawn kiosk. Its front window was steamed over, its door locked hours ago, but the greenhouse at the rear still radiated soft gold light. There, Lena Voss stood among rows of orchids, helix roses, and sapphire watercress. Her thin gloves stained emerald from grafting stems that had never existed in nature. To the respectable residents of District 12, she was a pleasant, nose-pierced florist who knew everyone's anniversary date. To a select clientele, she was the smuggler of bloom, discreet purveyor of bioengineered flora that could heal, intoxicate, or kill depending on the splice. She had just finished embedding a sensor seed into the throat of a midnight calla when a shadow spread across the glass. Lena's heart kicked once. She kept a pistol full of sleep darts beneath the misting console. But then she recognized the silhouette. Tall, long coat, mask shining like a full moon slivered in two. She exhaled and unlocked the side door. "You're late," she said, stepping aside so Spectre could drip rainwater onto the corrugated floor. "Had to discourage a mugging on 94th. The vigilante's voice emerged modulated, iron filing over velvet. "Your message said urgent." Lena slipped the calla into a nutrient cradle, then keyed a hologram above the potting bench. A schematic oculus of petals expanded, each cell annotated with chemical payloads. "You ever hear of Brightforge Labs?" She didn't wait for a reply. "They belong to Argonaut Biodyne now. I found their watermark in this seed." Spectre leaned closer while raindrops shivered off the brim of the hood. "Argonaut handles military contracts." "Exactly. This cultivar was ordered as a funeral arrangement." The client admitted, after mild persuasion, "He's a courier. Argonaut is developing an aerosol narcotic that bonds to dopamine receptors in 30 seconds. The flower blooms, releases spores. Addicts a crowd before they know to hold their breath." The vigilante's mask remained unreadable, but tension seeped into the air. "Release location?" "They're testing in 2 nights at the Equinox Gala. City councilors, corp CEOs, broadcast celebrities, everyone with pull." She minimized the schematic. "I can't stop this alone, Spectre. I need muscle, stealth, and whatever tech wizardry you pack under that cloak." Somewhere beyond the greenhouse, a siren spiraled into the sky. Both of them waited until it receded. Then Spectre nodded once. "We burn the garden before it blooms." A plan unfurled over the next hour, a braiding of talent and secrets. Lena supplied blueprints of Brightforge's vertical biodome, obtained from a disgruntled architect who liked free lilies. Spectre provided infiltration countermeasures: EMP flechettes, optic jammers, micro-drones shaped like moths. They mapped patrol patterns between sips of steaming yarrow tea until the storm outside relented to a drizzle. Before parting, Lena paused in the loading bay. "Why do you do it?" she asked softly. "Stalk rooftops? Take bullets for strangers?" The mask tilted. "Someone has to keep the scales from tipping too far." "That's an ideology, not a reason." Spectre seemed to weigh whether the night still had space for disclosure. "Finally, because I once served the system that breaks people, couldn't stomach the hypocrisy. Lena accepted the partial confession with a slow nod. She offered a black-spined chrysanthemum. For luck! Spectre vanished into the thinning rain, Bloom tucked in a belt pouch. The following day dawned bruise-colored, and Nova Byzantium's countless screens pushed ads for the Equinox Gala. Shimmering gowns, orbital champagne, charity auctions sponsored by Argonaut Biodyne. Lena kept her shop open, arranging wedding bouquets while fielding encrypted pings from couriers who wanted nightshade cigarettes or mood-altering violets. She found comfort among petals. Unlike humans, flowers always told the truth of their condition. Across the river, in the rusted husk of the old call center, Spectre removed the silver mask, revealing Ren Calderon, former detective, dishonorably discharged after refusing to bury evidence against a conglomerate. Ren cleaned the mask's inner lattice, updated drone firmware, and studied Lena's schematics. One note in the florist's cursive read, "Attention, bloom cycles tied to precise humidity ramps. Trigger that system, and you trigger the spores." By twilight, they reconvened in a subway tunnel, long abandoned to moss and battery acid. Lena wore charcoal cargo trousers instead of her usual apron, and a harness of glass vials crossing her torso like bandoliers. Ren had traded the cloak for a matte glider suit whose micro-membranes could stiffen into a wing if leaping from the higher floors. "Last chance to bail," Ren said, voice filter engaged again. "Last chance to buy a bouquet," Lena countered. They shared a thin smile, then started walking underground until they met daylight in District 8, half a kilometer from Brightforge's tower. The building was a chrome obelisk, girdled by transparent grow tiers. Even at night, its interior glowed jade, 5 stories of hydroponic vines swaying in artificial wind. Argonaut's smaller logo now hovered beside Brightforge's sign, a reminder of which Titan truly ruled. They split. Lena slipped into the staff entrance, using a palm patch replicating the head botanist's bioelectric signature. She'd obtained it by selling the man a mutagenic tulip that coaxed euphoria. He never asked what she wanted in return. Inside, she blended with technicians in white smocks, scanning shelf barcodes and nodding at cameras. Ren scaled the exterior like liquid shadow, magnetic gauntlets finding seams between panels. On the 42nd level, a maintenance vent opened at a gentle pry, and the Vigilante slid inside unused ductwork smelling of nutrient mist. The plan: Ren would plant EMP charges near the spore generators, while Lena injected an enzymatic breaker into the irrigation feed. Then both would rendezvous at the atrium, sabotage the data servers, and disappear before emergency drones locked the exits. For 20 minutes, they ghosted through their labyrinths, whispering over bone conduction comms. Ren neutralized 2 security drones with silenced darts, then set the first EMP puck behind a bank of gas chromatographs. Downstairs, Lena used a micro-lancet to pierce the main line. Violet fluid seeped into the pipe, a biochemical Trojan that would corrode the spore's protein shells. "Package delivered," she murmured. "Copy. Moving to the hive." Ren dropped from a vent into a chamber of transparent pods, each containing a crimson-veined lily suspended in gel. A single breath fogged the visor. The air already tingled with alkaloids. Then the lights blared white. Klaxons stabbed the silence. Doors irised shut with hydraulic finality. Over speakers, a calm, synthetic voice announced, "Containment protocol engaged. Unauthorized activity detected." Ren swore under breath. "They were waiting! Tilted scales!" Lena said, heart jackhammering. She pocketed the wrench and looked for an exit, but steel shutters blocked the corridors. White-armored Argonaut guards jogged toward her, rifles that fired sonic pulses humming. She pivoted into a greenhouse wing, slammed the door, and twisted irrigation valves wide open. A torrent cascaded from overhead sprayers, drenching the guards as they burst inside. Moisture shorted their optics. Lena hurled a flash orb, grown from a dahlia's core. It detonated in blinding turquoise, buying her minutes. In the pod chamber, 2 security mechs clanked onward. Wren lobbed an EMP puck. The machine stalled, joints twitching, but containment foam hissed from sealing nozzles, a quick, hardening resin. Spectre launched upward with the glider membrane, catching an overhead beam before the foam swallowed the floor. Outside the sealed tower, party-goers were already arriving on Lev cars, unaware of the chaos. Argonaut couldn't risk panic. They would try to neutralize the intruders quietly. That gave the pair a narrow window before lethal countermeasures were sanctioned. Lena reached a freight lift, pried the panel, and hot-wired the pulley. As she ascended, she patched comms. "We need an extraction route. Atrium is compromised. The North Sky Bridge leads to an adjacent parking spire." Wren's goggles overlaid maps. "Meet on level 51. On my way." The lift groaned upward. She checked her vial harness. 2 enzyme rounds left, plus a packet of seeds, genetically coded, to sprout barbed vines within seconds. Emergency tools if corners grew too tight. Above, Spectre climbed a maintenance ladder inside a ventilation shaft. Through slats, he glimpsed the gala hall. Crystal chandeliers, holographic koi weaving midair, guests dancing in mirrored masks. In the center bloomed a single spotlighted flower, one of Argonaut's crimson lilies, ringed by transparent tubes. A public demonstration disguised as art. "Sweet roots," Wren muttered. "They'll trigger mass addiction as spectacle." "We still kill it," Lena's jaw set. "Meet point in 3, but Wren halted. Argonaut staff wheeled a child onto the stage, perhaps 8, hair pressed into ceremonial waves. The announcer's voice boomed. "Our next generation therapeutic fragrance will debut, as harmless as it is beautiful." "Applause," Wren's pulse stuttered. A memory. Little sister Maya in a hospital bed, hacked lungs begging for air, while executives withheld the affordable cure to maximize quarterlies. Wren clenched the beam. No more children paying invoices in blood. Forget extraction. This demonstration had to fail in front of all those camera lenses. Spectre descended into the hall. Lena's lift dinged 51. She saw no vigilante. Instead, a phalanx of guards awaited. "Hands where we can see them," barked the lead, visor reflecting rows of orchids. She raised her palms gradually. "You may not want to shoot." "Why's that?" "These." She flicked her wrists. Seeds burst in a radial bloom, hit the tile, and sprouted nightmare vines that whipped out like kraken tentacles. Guards yelped as stems coiled their ankles, thorns piercing armor joints. Lena sprinted down the corridor. She toggled comms. "Spectre, where the hell are you?" "Altering the plan." Wren's voice bordered on feral focus. "I'm taking the stage. Do you have support?" "I have a chrysanthemum," came the strange, gentle reply, and then the line cut. Lena cursed creatively, then pivoted. She knew a utility stair to the gala balcony. If Spectre was about to improvise, he'd need a witness who could weaponize the horticulture. Wren stepped through velvet curtains into swirling light. A murmur rippled as guests spotted the silver mask, the impossibly calm stride. Security drones swarmed overhead. The presenter sputtered. "This man is an imposter." "Incorrect," Wren projected, voice amp cranked. "The imposters are the ones claiming this flower heals. It enslaves." Gasps. Camera drones pivoted. Wren held up the black-spined chrysanthemum Lena had gifted. "Beauty is not benign because it is pretty. You have been lied to, as Argonaut has lied to regulators, to councils, to the families of overdose victims, lining morgues outside this palace. Spectre crushed the chrysanthemum. Microfilaments, laced with Lena's enzyme dust, drifted into the lily's containment tubes. The chemical breaker tore through carbon bonds, wilting petals in seconds. Tubes darkened with rot. Alarm shrieked anew. Wren reached into the coat, flung the last EMP puck upward. Spotlights died. Drones crashed like metallic sparrows. On the balcony, Lena triggered her borrowed security wristband. Through the main feed, every screen in the hall exploded into data. Argonaut memos detailing addiction trials, death tallies, bribed officials. She had exfiltrated them from the server farm en route. Panic surged. Guests scrambled for exits. Amid the commotion, Wren bounded to the child, severed the ankle restraint, and scooped her up. "Let's get you somewhere safe." Lena met them by a side stairwell. They raced downward through smoke and strobe lights until they emerged into a loading dock. Rain had returned, slanting knives of silver. An armored Argonaut pursuit vehicle screeched in, turret humming. Wren set the child behind a pallet, then drew twin shock batons. "Go," he told Lena. "I'll stall." She didn't argue. She guided the girl toward a service tunnel. Halfway, she glanced back. Spectre danced between muzzle flashes, batons cracking arcs of cobalt that blistered armor. He was magnificent, but numbers pressed close. Lena knelt, tore open a vial, and whispered to the seed, "Grow!" She rolled it onto the asphalt. Scarlet roots erupted, splintering concrete, serpentine tendrils lashing the vehicle. Metal groaned, tires lifted, then the entire chassis flipped, disabling the gun. Wren dispatched the remaining guards with clinical precision. Silence returned, broken only by rain drumming sheet metal. They regrouped in the tunnel mouth. The child stared at the wilted scarlet vines with awed terror. "What's your name, little sprout?" Lena asked, wiping mud from the girl's cheek. "Ava," she whispered. Wren crouched. "Ava, you're safe now. Do you have someone to call?" "My aunt. She's at St. Vivian's shelter. We'll bring you there." It took an hour of back alleys and drone evasion, but they delivered Ava to the shelter's bright doorway. The girl hugged both of them fiercely before disappearing inside. Under a leaking awning, the Vigilante and the florist finally breathed. Sirens crisscrossed distant districts. Argonaut's meltdown had reached the news nets. "Tonight didn't follow the blueprint," Wren said, rolling his shoulder where foam burns blistered skin. "Blueprints are suggestions," Lena replied. She examined him for injury. Found none fatal. Her own arms were scratched, but functional. "Argonaut will hunt us harder." "Good." The mask's eyes dimmed, empathy flickering. "Every tyrant needs resistance." Lena's breath plumed in the cold. "You asked why ideal black market blooms. My mother died of necrofungal cancer. The cure was locked behind a pharmaceutical paywall. I vowed to make plants answer to people again, not profiteers." Wren removed the mask at last. In the soft smear of streetlight, Lena saw earnest eyes, storm gray, rimmed with fatigue and defiance. He offered the hand not holding the mask. "Wren Calderon." She clasped it. "Lena Voss." Their handshake felt less like greeting and more like an oath. Over the following weeks, Nova Byzantium rippled with aftershocks. Argonaut executives were summoned before committees, their stock hemorrhaging value. Though the company traced the leaks to Spectre and the so-called Bloom smuggler, they lacked images clear enough for conviction. The public, meanwhile, debated whether the masked vigilante was menace or savior. Street vendors sold cheap silver masks. Children quoted his speech at playgrounds. In District 12, Voss Botanic flourished. Customers ordered ordinary tulips, oblivious to the basement lab where Lena improved her enzyme dust, ensuring addictive spores would never again leave a petal. Some evenings, a certain masked figure dropped by after patrol. They would sip tea among luminescent ferns and plain, sometimes raids, sometimes gardens. One night, Wren arrived early, no urgent mission in sight, carrying a paper-wrapped bundle. He unrolled it to reveal a single chrysanthemum, petal tips dipped in midnight ink. "I cultivated it myself," he admitted, almost shy. "Wanted to see if I learned anything from the best." Lena turned the bloom under the greenhouse lantern. "You nailed the splice, but you're missing a leaf incision. Here." Her fingers brushed his. The air between them brimmed with fragrant static. Outside, the city flickered with neon scars, with greed and promise, with sirens that never quite fell silent. Inside the greenhouse, two unlikely guardians nurtured life potent enough to topple empires, or, if carefully tended, to heal the wounds empires left behind. They chose the latter more often than not, but always kept a few wild seeds in reserve, just in case the scales tipped again.